On my graduation, Dad handed me a box. Inside was a one-way bus ticket. "Good luck out there," he said. My sister laughed. I hugged Mom and left without a word. But they had no idea I was the youngest co-founder of a $40 million tech company. A week later, when my face appeared on national TV as the founder, my family showed up at my company's door, begging me to come home. "Hi, my name is Avery Lane, and on the morning of my master's graduation at the University of Washington, Seattle looked almost too perfect, like the city was celebrating everyone but me. The quad was flooded with sunlight, bouncing off purple gowns and silver honor cords. Families crowded the lawn with flowers, balloons, handwritten posters. Everywhere I turned, someone was being pulled into a hug, kissed on the forehead, wrapped in pride. And right in the middle of that bright, noisy celebration, I stood alone, clutching my cap as if it were the only thing keeping me from disappearing. I had finished a 2-year master's program in cybersecurity. Long nights in the lab, research, side projects, internships, building systems few people my age could understand. I should have felt proud. I should have felt seen. Instead, I kept catching myself scanning the crowd, hoping maybe, just maybe, my family would surprise me and show up early, or with flowers, or at least a smile. They didn't. They arrived 15 minutes late, like it was an errand they were annoyed to run. My father, Frank Lane, walked in front, stiff shoulders and permanent disapproval carved into his face. He had always hated my field, called it nonsense, geek work, a phase. My mother, Linda, followed a few steps behind him. Small, tired, clutching her purse like a shield. She smiled at me, a soft, apologetic smile she had worn my entire life. And then Madison, my younger by 2 years sister. The golden miracle of the Lane family clicked across the pavement in heels, sunglasses pushed into her perfect blonde hair, looking like she'd arrived at a photo shoot rather than my graduation. Maddie always looked effortlessly adored, effortlessly wanted. And for my parents, she was. They barely hugged me, no flowers. No congratulations. No, "We're proud of you." Dad simply told me to stand straighter for pictures. Madison giggled when I dropped my cap during a photo. Mom whispered, "You look beautiful," but even that felt like a secret she wasn't allowed to say too loudly. When the ceremony ended, my friends ran into the arms of parents who carried pride like warm blankets. I watched one girl burst into tears when her dad gave her a bouquet bigger than her torso. A boy next to me lifted his mother off the ground as she laughed. The world, everyone's world, was buzzing with joy. Mine felt like a hallway with all the doors locked. I was collecting my things when Dad called out, "Avery, over here." His voice had that tone, the one he used when something was already decided for me. I walked toward him, expecting maybe a stiff pat on the shoulder or another lecture about growing up. Instead, he handed me a small, square box wrapped in plain paper. No bow, no card, no warmth. Just a box. "Open it," he said. Something twisted in my stomach. I peeled the paper off, lifted the lid, and froze. Inside was a one-way bus ticket to Denver. Departure, tonight. 8:45 p.m. For a second, I couldn't breathe. The noise of the campus blurred. My heartbeat filled my ears. What is this?" I asked, barely hearing my own voice. Dad crossed his arms. "It's time for you to stand on your own 2 feet. You're 27, a grown woman. I'm not paying for you to live under our roof anymore." His voice was loud enough for a few people nearby to glance over. He didn't lower it. "The house isn't a hotel. You're done with school, it's time to leave." Madison let out a sharp laugh, the kind she used when kicking someone who was already on the ground. "Wow, Dad really planned ahead," she said. "A one-way ticket? Bold. But fair." My cheeks burned. My throat tightened. But I didn't argue. I couldn't. Not because he was right, but because fighting him never mattered. My whole life, raising my voice had only ever made him raise his louder. So, I swallowed the ache and the humiliation, closed the lid of the box, and said nothing. Mom stepped closer, her eyes glossy. She touched my arm, just a brush of fingers. "Sweetheart, maybe this will be good for you," she whispered. Her voice trembled like she wanted to say more but couldn't. Or wasn't allowed to. I hugged her. Really hugged her. I pressed my face into her shoulder and felt her inhale sharply, as if she knew this wasn't just a goodbye for the night. "Take care of yourself," she murmured. Her hands clung to my gown like she wished she could hold on longer. But Dad cleared his throat, and she let go. I straightened, wiped my cheeks quickly before anyone could see, and nodded. "Okay," I said softly. "I understand." It wasn't agreement. It was surrender. The last surrender I would ever give them. I turned away, walking through clusters of happy families, carrying nothing but my diploma, my gown, and a one-way ticket that was supposed to exile me. Madison's laughter followed me like a trail of poison. Dad didn't call after me. Mom didn't stop me. To them, it was done. They thought they had finally rid themselves of their difficult, stubborn, wasteful daughter, the one who didn't choose the career they approved of, who didn't become their version of success. But what they didn't know, and what I didn't intend to tell them, was that I had prepared for this moment long before they ever dreamed of that bus ticket. They thought they were sending me away. They didn't realize I was already gone. I walked out of that campus with their box in my hands, but with a truth they would never have believed. The life waiting for me in Denver was one they could never control, never diminish, never take credit for. And that ticket they meant as a dismissal? I was going to use it as the beginning of my freedom. The bus pulled away from Seattle, just as the sky shifted into that pale gold twilight the city is famous for. I sat by the window, my gown folded across my lap, the box with the ticket tucked into my backpack like some twisted souvenir. As the city shrank behind me, the knot in my chest loosened, not all at once, but slowly, like something clenched for years was finally beginning to release. I should have been devastated. Any normal person, kicked out by her family on graduation day, would have been. But the truth, the one truth, no one in my family ever bothered to imagine, was that they hadn't thrown me into the unknown. They had thrown me straight back into the life I built without them. Somewhere between Olympia and Portland, as the bus hummed through long stretches of highway. My phone buzzed for the 5th time. Elias again. Elias Carter, 27. Co-founder of CipherGuard, my closest friend, my chaos partner, my anchor when no one else believed in me. And the only person who knew that the Avery Lane my parents dismissed as a failure was, in a world far from Seattle, something completely different. His messages lit up the screen. "Where are you? Please tell me you're not still in Seattle, dealing with that circus. Avery, don't ghost me right now. We need you. And also, I'm worried." I smiled despite myself. Elias had a way of sounding like both the world's most brilliant engineer and a frantic older brother at the same time. I typed back. "I'm on my way to Denver. Bus. Long story, I'll explain tonight." 3 dots appeared instantly. "Bus? What do you mean bus? Avery, what happened?" Then another message before I could reply. "Are you safe?" For a moment, I considered telling him everything: how my dad handed me a one-way ticket as if I were clutter to be hauled off, how Madison laughed, how my mother's hug felt like a goodbye she wasn't brave enough to admit. But the words jammed in my throat. I wasn't ready. Not yet. So, I sent him what I could manage. "I'm okay, really. Just give me a few hours." The bus lights dimmed. People settled in, headphones on, pillows against windows, quiet conversations. I leaned back, letting the vibration of the road steady my breath. And that was when I allowed myself to finally, fully acknowledge the truth. I wasn't going to Denver because they told me to go. I was going home. CipherGuard had been my second life for the past 3 years, a life I lived carefully hidden from my family. My father, Frank, never believed in tech careers unless they ended in medical school or corporate management. Anything involving code, AI, cybersecurity, he dismissed all of it as nerdy daydreaming. Whenever I came home exhausted from a day of working in the computer lab, he'd say things like, "Avery, when are you going to get a real career? People who code end up stuck behind a screen forever. Dream smaller. You're not cut out for big things." I learned early to stop telling him what I really did. To stop expecting my mother to defend me. To stop trying to make Maddie see me as anything more than the family punching bag. And so, Cypher Guard became my sanctuary. Elias and I met in a research program during undergrad, two people who found comfort in lines of code and whiteboards full of impossible ideas. Together, we built something no one expected, an AI-based intrusion prevention system capable of shielding national infrastructure from cyber attacks. A breakthrough. A revolution. Something so promising that private investors threw their weight behind us before we even turned 26. Two founders. Equal partners. $40 million valuation. And no one in my family had the faintest clue. They thought I was just finishing a degree. They thought I was just playing with computers. They thought Denver would break me. In reality, Denver was the city where Elias and I had signed papers beneath sharp, fluorescent office lights, the city where our algorithm had first detected a live threat from a foreign server. The city where, in just a week, we were scheduled to unveil our largest breakthrough, yet a national AI security solution that half the tech media was already whispering about. Tomorrow, headlines would explode. Next week, the government would call. And, in a matter of days, my name would be everywhere. The bus ticket wasn't an exile. It was a return. Somewhere past the Rockies, fatigue pulled at me. I closed my eyes, letting the hum of the engine settle into something steady. For the first time since the ceremony, I allowed myself to feel the contradiction running through me, hurt but also relief. Sorrow but also clarity. Yes, my father had humiliated me. Yes, he had treated me like a burden, like someone disposable. But he also unknowingly freed me from pretending to need his approval. With every mile the bus put between me and Seattle, I felt a weight peeling off, the weight of trying to justify myself, of shrinking in their presence, of apologizing for the way my brain worked or what I cared about. In a strange, quiet way, I felt lighter. My phone buzzed again, just one message this time. Elias. Whatever happened, I'm here. Just come home. Home. A simple word. A word my biological family never made me feel. A word Denver had given me long before today. I typed one last message. See you tonight. We've got a big week ahead. And as the bus began its final stretch toward Colorado, I rested my head against the window, watching the reflections blur into streaks of city lights. The pain of the day was still inside me, but it no longer defined me. Because freedom had already begun the moment I stepped onto this bus. And soon, the world and my family would discover who I truly was. By the time the bus rolled into Denver, the sky had turned a deep indigo, stitched with city lights that shimmered like constellations pulled down to earth. My muscles were stiff, and the emotional weight of the day still throbbed somewhere under my ribs, but when I stepped off the bus and saw Elias standing there, hands in the pockets of his hoodie, dark curls messy from running them through too many times, the heaviness in me cracked open. He spotted me instantly, his eyes scanning for bags. Then widening when he saw I only carried a single worn backpack. Avery. He breathed, walking toward me fast. Please tell me this isn't all you brought. It's still way. I forced a laugh, though it came out thin. It's enough for now. His face tightened, concern, anger on my behalf, a question he wasn't sure he should ask. Elias had always been perceptive to the point of being intrusive, but tonight he didn't push. Instead, he took the backpack from my shoulder with a gentleness that undid something in me. Let's go home, he said. You look exhausted. Home. There was that word again, so simple, but it hit differently when coming from someone who actually meant it. I followed him to the car, grateful for the silence between us, the kind that felt like safety rather than discomfort. The drive into the city was a blur of neon reflections and familiar streets. My pulse steadied as the skyline rose higher, and then, out of the night, the glass tower appeared, our tower. Cypher Guard Tower, 18 floors of steel and midnight blue windows rising like a pillar in downtown Denver. Seeing it again felt like inhaling clean air after too long underwater. Elias glanced at me as he pulled into the underground garage. You ready? For what? I asked. He smirked but didn't answer. The moment the elevator doors opened at the 15th floor, the engineering war room, I understood. Lights burst overhead. Confetti cannons popped. Someone shouted, "She's here." And suddenly 40 people erupted in applause, cheering loud enough to drown out the pounding in my chest. Streamers hung from the steel beams, and a banner stretched across the glass wall. Congrats, Avery, Master of Cybersecurity. I froze. For a full 2 seconds, I thought they were celebrating someone behind me. But no, Elias nudged me forward, and an entire room of engineers, analysts, interns, and founders in training rushed toward me. Boss, you did it. We've been waiting all day. His sprayed in a first aided. I cooed, also guys. We saved cake, don't let Max near it. He already tried twice. Someone handed me a bouquet of sunflowers. Someone else shoved a sparkly graduation crown on my head. Music blasted from a speaker, something upbeat and ridiculous, and my chest tightened, but in a way I wasn't used to. It wasn't pain, it wasn't humiliation. It was warmth. It was recognition. It was belonging. For the first time in my life, a room full of people celebrated me loudly, joyfully, unapologetically. I felt my throat sting, but this time the tears weren't from being pushed out, they were from being pulled in. Elias leaned close, voice low. Figured it was about time someone threw you a real graduation party. I swallowed hard. Thank you. I whispered. No one has ever done something like this for me. His smile softened. Get used to it. We gathered around the center table, where a cake sat in the shape of a computer chip with tiny frosting lines like circuit pathways. The team joked, laughed, teased each other, except every time their eyes landed on me, something shifted. It wasn't just admiration. They looked at me like I was their leader. Like I mattered. Like my work, my mind was something extraordinary. I had never experienced a version of myself that felt this. Scene. Later, after most of the team drifted out and the music died down, Elias and I sat on the balcony overlooking Denver. Warm winds brushed across the railing, carrying hints of summer rain. The city stretched wide beneath us, glowing with possibility. He took a breath. There's something I need to tell you. I turned, my heartbeat slowing. What is it? The board met yesterday, he said, eyes fixed on the skyline. They want to move up the announcement. I blinked. The reveal? He nodded. Next week. The media, the developers conference, the full rollout of Sentinel AI. They want the founders, the real founders on stage. That means you, me, together. My pulse stumbled for a moment. Not out of fear, more like inevitability settling into place. I had known this day was coming. We had planned for it for months. But hearing it out loud, just hours after being shoved out of my own family, the timing felt surreal. Elias finally looked at me. Avery, the country is about to know your name. Not in a small way. In a seismic, headline everywhere kind of way. If you're explains butter, like stuttered indacted. I inhaled slowly, letting the weight of his words sink in. And my family will know too. Yes, he said quietly. There's no hiding anymore. I turned back toward the city lights, letting them blur into soft, shimmering shapes. Somewhere in Seattle, my father likely thought he'd made the final decision for my life. That he had sent me off into uncertainty. But he had no idea I was already standing on the balcony of an empire he never believed I could build. I'm not scared, I finally said. Elias smiled faintly. I know. In that moment, the distance between Denver and Seattle felt bigger than miles. It felt like two different universes. One where I was never enough, and one where I was finally allowed to become everything I was meant to be. And as the night settled gently around us, I realized something with absolute clarity. I hadn't just come back to Denver. I had come back to myself. The night after the celebration, when the last traces of confetti had been swept from the engineering floor and the hum of the city drifted softly through my apartment windows, reality finally began to settle, like dust around me. Denver felt warm, alive, welcoming. Yet somewhere inside, a small, stubborn ache pulsed, a leftover bruise from Seattle I couldn't quite shake. I tried to ignore it, losing myself in technical notes for the upcoming reveal, but eventually my phone buzzed on the table. The screen lit up with a name that made the air feel heavier. The message was short, sharp, and exactly the tone I expected. Dad, where are you staying tonight? No greeting. No How was the ceremony? No acknowledgement of the graduation. He barely endured. Just another demand disguised as concern. I stared at the message, a bitter taste rising in my throat. Part of me wanted to type back something small and clean, like I'm fine. But after everything he'd done, and everything he refused to see, I couldn't bring myself to give him even that. I set the phone face down on the table and walked away. It buzzed again a minute later. Then again. I didn't check. But when the buzzing stopped, it started again from a different number. Madison. Of course. Her message came in a flurry of glittery emojis and poison-tipped words that stabbed even through a screen. Madison. Good luck in Denver? Try not to call Dad begging for money. He's done enough. My jaw clenched. She always struck where she believed I was weakest: money, independence, worth. She had no idea. She had never bothered to know. And now, she was mocking me on the very night her father had handed me a box meant to exile me from their lives. I typed a response, 3 whole sentences of what I wanted to say, but erased them before they could take shape. No. I wouldn't give her that satisfaction. Let her talk into the void. Let her choke on her own assumptions. Silence, I was learning, could be sharper than any retort. But then the phone rang, and the sound fractured me in a way the messages didn't. Mom. For a moment, I just stared at the screen, the caller ID glowing soft and familiar. My chest tightened. Unlike with Dad or Madison, the instinct to ignore didn't come easily. Mom had never defended me, never stood up to my father, never chosen me loudly, but she had loved me quietly. I heard it in her sighs, her whispered apologies, the way her hands trembled when she touched my face. I answered. The moment the line connected, I heard her sob. Not the dramatic, guilt-coated kind my father used to manipulate us, but the small, cracking sob of someone who'd been holding her worry inside all day. Avery, honey, are you safe? Her voice shook like a frightened child's. I closed my eyes, sinking onto the edge of the bed. I'm safe, Mom. Where are you? Are you okay? Your father said. She cut herself off, breath hitching, as if she was afraid even mentioning him would break the fragile line between us. Sweetheart, you left so fast. I didn't even get to say goodbye properly. I swallowed the lump forming in my throat. I'm okay. Really? 8. Are you staying with someone? Do you need money for a hotel? I have a little saved, I can. No, Mom. I softened my voice. I'm not alone. I'm working. Working? Her tears stalled. On what? For a second, the truth rose to my lips. Cipher Guard. The reveal. The national security rollout. The empire I helped build without them. But the moment I pictured my father's face, his mocking smirk, his disgust every time the word technology left my mouth, the truth snapped shut inside me like a locked vault. Something important, I said instead. Something I've been building for a long time. There was silence on the other end, long, loaded, trembling silence. I could practically feel her wanting to ask more. Wanting to understand, wanting to be close. But Mom had lived too many years beneath my father's shadow, learning to swallow questions before they could become conflicts. Finally, in a voice barely more than a whisper, she said, I'm just glad you're safe. I am, I promised. Will you call me again soon? My heart tightened. Yes, I will. We stayed on the phone another minute, neither of us knowing how to end the call without making it feel like a fracture. She told me she loved me softly. As if she had to say it before someone in the house heard, I told her I loved her too. And when we finally hung up, I kept the phone in my hand for a long while, staring at the blank screen. That was the problem. I loved her. And I loved her enough to walk away from the life that forced her to be small, passive, afraid. I lay back on the bed, the weight of two worlds tugging in opposite directions. The old one, still trying to pull me back with guilt, obligation, manipulation. And the new one, the one I built myself, inviting me forward with opportunity, respect, and the first real taste of freedom I'd ever known. Part of me ached for my mother. But a larger part was done being anyone's sacrifice. For the first time in my 27 years, I could feel the distance growing not just in miles, but in identity. I wasn't the daughter who needed permission anymore. I wasn't the outsider begging to be seen. I wasn't the scapegoat in a family drama that had swallowed my entire youth. I was leaving them. Not because they pushed me out, but because I finally understood I didn't have to stay. And as I set my phone aside and turned off the lights, I felt it clearly. The tether to my old life was thinning, thread by thread. Soon, it would snap completely. The days that followed felt like stepping into the eye of a storm, calm on the surface, but pulsing with an intensity that made my skin hum. Every morning, when I arrived at Cypherguard Tower, the air buzzed with whispers, urgency, and a kind of electric anticipation that radiated through every hallway. Our project, our years of work, sacrifice, late-night debugging, and endless whiteboard battles was finally making its way into the public sphere. And the tech world had already begun to vibrate with curiosity. By midweek, articles were popping up everywhere. Who are the anonymous geniuses behind Cypherguard? National security agencies in talks with mystery startup. 2. Under 3.0 innovators rumored to lead AI infrastructure leap. Journalists speculated wildly about who we might be, some guessed retired military analysts, others suspected ex-Google wunderkinds. No one imagined a 27-year-old woman from Seattle who had once been told coding was a waste of time. Every time I passed a conference room, someone was huddled over a screen, analyzing media coverage. Screenshots of headlines decorated whiteboards like victory badges. And yet, none of it felt real until the morning Elias rolled into my office, pushing a cart stacked with folders, laminated mock-ups, and a laptop with color-coded tabs. "We start now," he said, dropping the folders onto my desk. "Headshots, press profiles, biography drafts, your keynote outline, the stage design, lighting notes, seating chart. And your wardrobe options should be delivered in," he checked the time on his watch. 30 minutes. I blinked. "Wardrobe options?" He grinned. "You can't debut as the co-founder of a $40 million cybersecurity empire wearing that sweatshirt from the university gift shop." I looked down at myself. "It's comfortable." "Exactly," he said. "We're going for strong, decisive, CEO energy. You'll thank me later." It was impossible not to smile. Elias was always like this, hyper-prepared, annoyingly perceptive, a little dramatic, and always in my corner. For the next few hours, he walked me through everything meticulously. My press photos needed to project authority without looking staged. My biography had to balance technical expertise with human relatability. The keynote would be the heart of the reveal, part explanation, part inspiration, part declaration that Cypherguard was ready to reshape the security landscape of an entire country. He handed me a packet labeled Avery, Stage Positioning. "What is this?" I asked, flipping through diagrams of lighting angles and podium markers. "Your spotlight," he said. "Literally. We want the moment your name appears on the LED wall to feel monumental." The word sank into my bones. Monumental. No one had ever associated me with anything monumental in my old life. But here, I was allowed to be seen. That afternoon, my wardrobe arrived: sleek black blazers, tailored pants, structured jumpsuits, minimalist heels. I chose an all-black ensemble with sharp lines and clean edges, powerful, confident, controlled. Someone once told me that black absorbs light. Now it felt more like it channeled it. The hours slipped by quickly. The reveal was in 2 days. My speech was nearly final. But that night, long after everyone went home, I stayed in the empty auditorium on the 10th floor, practicing it to rows of unoccupied seats. My voice echoed softly. I grew up in a world where people told me what I couldn't do. Cypherguard was built on what we knew we could. Each time I spoke the words, something inside me strengthened, but something else trembled. A question. A wound. Did my family deserve to know? Did they deserve to hear my name echo across the country? Did they deserve the truth after throwing me away? A small part of me yearned for them to see what I had built, to witness the life they tried to crush. But another part, the part that had walked away from Seattle with nothing but a backpack and dignity, knew better. I didn't owe them triumph. I didn't owe them explanation. I didn't owe them anything. Still, the conflict throbbed inside me like a bruise you keep pressing just to see if it still hurts. Around midnight, I packed my things and took the elevator up to my apartment. The city below glowed softly, like embers under a dark sky. I made tea, changed into pajama pants. And just when I sank onto my couch, my phone lit up again. Eins new voicemail. Mom. My breath caught. I tapped play. Her voice came through faint, shaky, like she was afraid the phone itself might judge her. Avery. I hope you're sleeping somewhere warm tonight. Your father is pretending not to be worried, but I know he is. I know you won't call. And maybe that's my fault. I miss you. She inhaled a shaky breath. I love you, sweetheart. I'm sorry if everything, made you feel unwanted. I didn't mean for it to be like that. The voicemail ended abruptly, like she'd run out of courage mid-thought. I closed my eyes and let the sound of her voice wash over me. It hurt. It comforted. It reopened a wound and stitched it at the same time. I replayed it, twice. But when it finished the third time, clarity settled like a stone at the bottom of a lake. I wasn't going back. Not to the house where I'd been belittled. Not to the people who only valued obedience. Not to the life I'd outgrown long before graduation. Tomorrow, we would finalize the keynote. The next day, we would rehearse on the full stage. In 48 hours, the country would know who Avery Lane was. And my family, whether ready or not, would finally see the daughter they tried so hard to dim. Not because I needed their validation, but because I no longer needed them at all. The morning of the reveal felt unreal, like the quiet right before a thunderstorm cracks open the sky. I woke before my alarm, wide-eyed in the dim blue haze of dawn filtering through my apartment windows. For a moment, I just lay there, listening to the hum of Denver waking up below, cars starting, soft chatter on the sidewalks, the city stretching into another day. Except for me, today wasn't another day. Today was the day everything shifted. My black suit hung on the back of my closet door, sharp and clean, like it belonged to a version of me I was still getting used to. CEO energy, Elias had called it. The kind of energy that didn't apologize for existing. I showered, dressed, straightened my hair into a sleek curtain that fell just above my collarbone, and applied makeup with steady hands even though my heart was beating like a drum inside my chest. At 8:15 a.m., Elias knocked on my door, already in his navy suit, tie perfectly straight. He looked at me for a long moment, a small smile tugging at his lips. "You look like you're about to take over the country," he said. I exhaled. "Maybe just the cybersecurity sector for now. It's Brockshans." He laughed, but his eyes softened. "You ready?" I nodded, even if readiness felt like something I was still reaching for. Denver Convention Hall was already buzzing by the time we arrived. Photographers lined the entrance like a metallic forest, their camera lenses pointed toward the double doors, as if waiting for a creature no one had ever seen before. Inside, enormous screens looped CipherGuard's teaser promo, glowing circuit fractals, fragments of code, pulsing light motifs hinting at the AI system behind it all. The press badges on the registration table read like a who's who of national media. Wired, TechCrunch, The Verge, Bloomberg, CNBC, Forbes, Reuters. People whispered as Elias and I walked past them. "That's Carter, the male founder. But where's the second one?" No one guessed it was me. Not one. Rumors had already leaked that the mystery cybersecurity prodigy would appear today, someone under 30, someone brilliant, someone no one had ever seen. Ironically, most assumed it would be another man. Let them watch, I thought. Let them see. The hall dimmed as the event began. Hundreds of attendees packed the auditorium, developers, government representatives, investors, journalists holding their breath like something seismic was about to be revealed. Elias went up first, as we'd planned. He spoke flawlessly about our company's mission, the stakes, the breakthroughs. Every word built toward the moment I would step onto the stage. I waited behind the curtain, hands folded in front of me. Heartbeat echoing in my ears like distant thunder. The floor beneath me felt still, but the world on the other side of the stage was vibrating. And now, Elias's voice resonated through the hall. "It's time to introduce the mind behind Sentinel AI, the system that will redefine digital national defense." A ripple went through the audience. The lights dimmed further. Silence. A drumbeat of anticipation. The LED wall behind him blacked out, then came alive in a burst of white light and digital sound design. Lines of code shot across the screen, like meteor trails before morphing into letters one by one, deliberate, cinematic. Avery Lane, co-founder and lead systems architect. The spotlight hit me just as I stepped onto the stage. For one moment, one breathless, suspended moment, the world froze. Hundreds of cameras flashed at once, like a galaxy igniting. The sound that followed wasn't applause at first, it was a collective gasp, shock colliding with recognition as people realized the mysterious prodigy was me. Then the applause erupted loud, thunderous, rising in waves that crashed over the entire hall. I walked to center stage, the warmth of the spotlight pouring over me, illuminating a version of myself my family never believed existed. Elias extended his hand toward me, smiling with something close to pride. "Everyone," he said, still over the roaring applause. "Meet the architect behind our country's next shield." My throat tightened not with fear, but with a clarity so sharp it felt like a blade. I stepped forward to the podium. When I spoke, my voice carried steadily across the hall. "Good morning. My name is Avery Lane." The hall quieted instantly. "And for the past 3 years, my team and I have been building something designed to protect every digital doorway in this country." I told them about the vulnerabilities we'd mapped, the threats we'd intercepted, the AI we had trained to respond in microseconds. I told them about resilience, innovation, the responsibility of building tools powerful enough to protect millions. The more I spoke, the more the room leaned in, not because I was young, not because I was a woman, but because I knew exactly what I was talking about. By the time I finished, the applause wasn't explosive like before, it was reverent. A woman from Forbes shouted a question. "How did someone your age achieve this?" Another asked, "What inspired Cipherguard's founding?" And as cameras flashed, microphones angled toward me, and reporters scrambled to document every word, I realized something simple and profound. I belonged here, in this light, in this field, in this moment. But 1,300 miles away, in a quiet Seattle living room, something entirely different was happening. My name hit national news within minutes. Meet Avery Lane, the 27-year-old founder protecting America's digital backbone. Cipherguard's secret mastermind revealed. She was the mystery, now she's the future. And at home, my old home, my father dropped his coffee. Madison stopped mid-sentence. My mother, according to neighbors, sat down slowly on the couch, covering her mouth with both hands. Shock. Disbelief. And then, fear. Because they hadn't pushed out a failure. They had pushed out a phenom. And now the whole country knew my name. The moment I stepped down from the stage, adrenaline still humming through my veins, my phone began vibrating so violently it nearly slipped from my hand. At first, I thought it was journalists or developers trying to reach me after the keynote. But when I glanced at the screen, a cold wave rolled through me. Dad, Q missed calls. Mom, Nara missed calls. Madison, 9 missed calls. Unknown Seattle numbers, dozens more. It didn't stop. The phone buzzed, paused just long enough for me to breathe, then buzzed again. Relentless, like a swarm of locusts clawing their way out of the past. I powered the screen off, shoved it into my pocket, and walked with Elias toward the backstage lounge. People reached out to congratulate me, warm hands, bright smiles, compliments I had never imagined hearing in my life. But the constant vibration in my pocket made each moment feel like two worlds colliding, the one I had stepped into and the one refusing to let me go. "Avery," Elias said softly, watching my face. "You don't have to check anything right now." I know. But a part of me did want to know, wanted to see exactly how fast Seattle was burning. Back in the green room, away from the crowds, I finally turned my phone back on. It lit up instantly. "Dad, one new message. Come home immediately. We need to talk. We're still family." Family. The word felt like a rusty nail hammered into my chest. I didn't reply. Then Madison's messages loaded, one after another. "Maddie. Avery, please answer. I didn't know. I swear I didn't know. I never meant to hurt you today. I'm proud of you, really. I mean it. Please just call me proud? The same sister who laughed when Dad handed me a one-way bus ticket? The same sister who told me not to beg for money days ago? The hypocrisy stung. Not because I needed her validation, but because I had spent years believing if I just worked harder, achieved more, stayed smaller, quieter, better, one day she might say those words with sincerity. But reading them now, I didn't feel vindicated. I didn't feel powerful. I didn't feel anything at all. Not joy. Not revenge. Not triumph. Just emptiness. Like a door inside me had finally closed. Then Mom called again. The phone rattled against the table, her name glowing softly on the screen. My breath caught. Unlike Dad's demands or Madison's frantic texts, Mom's calls pulled at a tender place I still hadn't learned to protect. Elias looked at me. "You don't have to answer," he whispered. But ignoring Mom felt different. Cruel in a way I didn't want to be. I let it ring until it stopped, guilt curling in my stomach. A few seconds later, a text appeared. "Mom. Sweetheart, we saw the news. I didn't know. I didn't know you were doing something so important. Please call me when you can. I just want to hear your voice." My throat tightened. She wasn't asking for explanations. She wasn't demanding anything. She just wanted to hear me breathe. But even then, even with her soft words, something inside me recoiled at the thought of going back. I loved her, but I couldn't carry her fears, her silence, or the years she stood by while my father crushed every inch of confidence I tried to grow. I typed a reply, paused, then erased it, typed again, deleted again. In the end, I put the phone face down. Hours later, after the celebration dinner, after the interviews, after the waves of congratulations and cameras and applause, I returned to my apartment alone. The silence felt heavy but comforting, like the city itself understood I needed space to breathe. I set my phone on the kitchen counter. It buzzed again, buzzed nonstop. Finally, curiosity or maybe closure got the better of me. I opened my messages one more time. Dad had sent another wall of text. "Dad, we are your family. Families stick together. You owe us a conversation. Come home this weekend." No excuses. Oh, there it was. The word that had hung over my entire childhood like a noose. He thought my success meant he regained ownership of me. He thought my achievements were his to manage. He thought being my father gave him a claim on my future. But standing there, in the quiet of my Denver apartment, fresh from a day where an entire nation had clapped for my work, I finally understood something liberating. I didn't know him. Not my time. Not my presence. Not my genius. Not my voice. Nothing. Madison's messages kept coming too, turning more desperate each hour. "Avery, talk to me, please. I didn't mean what I said that day. I'm sorry. I really am. Don't shut me out." I could hear the panic behind her polished words, the terror of losing her role as the golden child, now that someone younger, smarter, and more accomplished had stepped into the light. But her fear didn't move me. Because today, for the first time in my life, I didn't feel like the dimmer version of someone else. I felt free. Not exhilarated. Not triumphant. Just free. The kind of freedom that comes after shedding a weight so heavy you forget you are ever carrying it. I turned off my phone completely and placed it in a drawer. Then I walked to my balcony and stepped into the cold Denver night. The air was crisp. The sky stretched wide and open above me, unclaimed. And beneath that endless sky, with the city glowing below, I finally whispered the truth out loud. I don't need them. And for the first time, the words didn't hurt. They healed. The next morning, sunlight spilled across my apartment floor in soft gold patterns, but it did nothing to ease the tightness in my chest. I had slept, but not well. Every time I drifted off, some faint vibration, real or imagined, pulled me up again, reminding me of the phone tucked away in the drawer like a creature waiting to be dealt with. I could ignore my father. I could ignore Madison. But my mother. Ignoring her felt like trying to silence a piece of my own heart. By mid-morning, the guilt had settled into something unbearable. I opened the drawer. The phone lit up with a flood of notifications, 20 missed calls from Dad, more messages from Madison that grew increasingly frantic, and at the bottom of the list, 3 missed calls from Mom. 1 voicemail. No demands. No guilt trips. Just her voice waiting for me in the dark. I pressed call back before I lost courage. She answered on the first ring, breath trembling. Avery? Hi, Mom. My voice cracked almost immediately. She burst into tears, not dramatic, not manipulative, but the raw, aching kind that only comes from love and powerlessness. Sweetheart, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you. I should have spoken up. I should have, her breath hitched. I failed you. The words hit me like a blow. All the years she stood silently behind my father. All the times she looked at me with apology instead of action. All the nights I wondered if she loved me less for being difficult, different, unpolished. All of it was lodged in her voice now, spilling out in jagged pieces. I pressed my hand to my forehead, eyes burning. Mom, no. You didn't fail me. I did, she whispered, her voice shaking. Every time he yelled at you. Every time he dismissed your dreams. I saw your face. I saw how small you felt. And I still didn't stop him. Another sob. You deserved better from me. You deserved a mother who fought for you. The truth was painful, but I couldn't let her drown in it. Mom, I said softly, I've never doubted your love. Not once. She inhaled sharply, as if absorbing those words like air she desperately needed. But, I continued, voice trembling, I can't come back there. Not to that house. Not to that life. There was a long pause, long enough that for a moment, I thought the line had gone dead. When she finally spoke, her voice was small but steady. I know. Her acceptance shattered something in me, something heavy I had been carrying for far too long. She didn't argue. She didn't try to convince me otherwise. She just understood. And somehow that hurt more than any guilt she could have thrown at me. I will always love him, she said quietly, but I know what he is. I know how he treats you, and I know he won't change. I pressed my thumb into my palm, grounding myself. I'm not asking you to choose, Mom. Tensions, and weigh. I know that too, she whispered. But I also know you choosing yourself is the bravest thing you've ever done. A tear slid down my cheek. For years, I believed leaving that house meant abandoning her. But now, hearing her say the words herself, I finally understood. Leaving didn't mean I loved her less. Leaving meant I loved myself enough to stop being hurt. She sniffled. Are you happy, Avery? In Denver? With your work? I looked around my apartment, the skyline through the window, the stack of plans for the next phase of Cypher Guard, the life I'd built with my own hands. Mom, I said softly, for the first time, I'm becoming someone I like. She cried again, but this time quietly, like a mother grieving the years her daughter spent invisible under her own roof. I'm proud of you, she whispered. Not for your success. Not for the news. But for standing up for your life. My throat tightened. Mom, I need you to understand something important. I'm listening. I took a breath, steadying myself. I'm not getting revenge on anyone. Silence. I'm not punishing you. Or Dad, or Madison. More silence. I'm just done giving people the chance to hurt me. I heard her inhale sharply, a sound full of both pain and relief. Avery. That's not selfish, she said. That's survival. It's slice. We stayed on the phone for a long time after that, not talking about the reveal, not talking about my father's rage or Madison's panic. Just existing together in a quiet, fragile space where honesty wasn't dangerous. Before we hung up, she whispered, You don't have to come home, sweetheart. Home, it's wherever you're safe. And, for the first time, she wasn't referring to Seattle. I love you, Mom, I said. I love you too, she whispered. Always. One hesitantly and winter doe. When the call ended, I sat in the stillness of my living room, letting her words echo through me. They didn't heal every wound, but they softened the edges of the oldest ones. They didn't erase the past, But they gave me permission not to return, but to keep walking forward. Because choosing myself didn't mean abandoning her. It meant finally giving both of us room to breathe. And for the first time, I felt the difference. 2 days after the reveal, the storm finally reached Denver. I had just finished reviewing a round of integration reports when Elias stuck his head into my office, eyebrows raised in a way that instantly told me something was wrong. Avery, he said carefully, you might want to come downstairs. My stomach dropped. Why? He hesitated. Because your family is here. For a moment, the words didn't register. My family. Here. At Cypher Guard Tower. I stood up too fast, my chair rolling back. They're what? Security called, he said gently. Your dad insisted they were here for a private meeting with the founder. Of course he did. I took the elevator down, pulse thudding in my throat. When the doors opened to the lobby, the scene hit me like a physical force. My father stood in the center of the marble floor, arms crossed, jaw tight, radiating the same rigid authority he'd always used to control a room. But this wasn't his living room, and the glass walls of Cypher Guard Tower didn't bend to him the way our old house did. His presence looked smaller here, swallowed by a space that didn't recognize him. Madison stood beside him, shifting anxiously, her usual confidence cracked at the edges. And Mom, my mother, stood slightly behind them, her eyes finding mine the moment I stepped forward. For a brief second, everything went silent. Then Dad spoke. Avery, he said, stepping toward me like he had every right to be here. We need to talk. As a family. I didn't move closer. I don't think we do. It's Donatella and Asher, and Workin. That threw him off for half a breath, but he recovered quickly, clearing his throat with an air of rightful indignation. Families help each other. We raised you. We supported you. You owe us the courtesy of an explanation. There it was. The word that defined my entire childhood. Oh. I don't owe you anything, I said quietly. His eyes widened, not hurt, but offended, as if my refusal challenged the natural order of his world. Don't talk like that, he snapped. You wouldn't be where you are without the foundation we gave you. I laughed. I couldn't help it. A sharp, stunned laugh that slipped out before I could catch it. The foundation you gave me? I repeated. Dad, the only foundation you ever gave me was learning to survive being underestimated. His face flushed a deep, angry red. Madison suddenly stepped forward, voice trembling. Avery, wait please. I want to say something before this gets worse. I turned to her. She looked different, stripped of her usual smirk, her perfect composure. Her hands shook as she tucked her hair behind her ear. I'm sorry, she said. The words came out small, as if she wasn't sure she deserved to say them. I was awful to you. I know I was. And it wasn't because you did anything wrong, it was because you did everything right. I stared at her, stunned. She swallowed hard. I was jealous. Ever since we were kids, you were always better at things. Smarter. More determined. And Dad, she glanced at him, pain tightening her voice, he only praised me when I made you look small. I learned early that hurting you meant earning his approval. And I'm sorry. I'm really, truly sorry. Her eyes filled with tears. I didn't laugh at you because I thought you were a failure. I laughed because he expected me to. Because it was easier than being invisible. My chest tightened. Not with anger, those wounds were old and scarred over, but with a complicated sadness I didn't know how to name. Madison wiped her cheeks. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I don't want to lie to myself anymore. I took a slow breath. Maddie, I said softly. I do forgive you. She gasped, surprised. But forgiving you, I continued, doesn't mean I'm coming back. Her face crumpled, but she nodded. She'd expected that. Dad, however, had not. His voice sharpened. This is ridiculous. You are part of this family, whether you like it or not. No, I cut him off, calm and steady. I don't owe you anything except honesty. And the truth is simple, I only owe myself a life that doesn't destroy me. His jaw clenched. You're being dramatic. No, I said. I'm being free. Silence dropped over the lobby. Mom stepped forward then, her voice the softest but somehow the one that carried the farthest. "Frank," she said quietly. "Let her go. There's miniatures, I am." He turned to her, stunned. "What?" "She's not coming home," Mom whispered. "And she shouldn't. We haven't been a safe place for her in a very long time." Dad stared at her as if she had betrayed him. But she wasn't betraying him. She was choosing truth. For the first time, he looked between us at me, at the lobby, at the building full of people who knew my worth, even if he never had. And for a flicker of a moment, I saw it. Fear. Not of losing me, but of losing control. "Fine," he finally said, voice cracking at the edges. "Do whatever you want. Don't come crawling back when this falls apart." I held his gaze. "I won't." Maddie let out a quiet sob. Mom wiped a tear silently. Dad turned on his heel and walked out of Cipher Guard Tower like it was unfamiliar terrain he couldn't conquer. Madison followed him reluctantly. Mom hesitated, touched my hand, whispered, "I'm proud of you," then walked after them. When the doors closed behind them, I felt something lift off my shoulders, lightening me, unhooking me, unrooting me from decades of expectations and wounds. Elias stepped beside me a moment later, quiet but steady. "You okay?" I looked at the doors, at the reflection of myself in the glass, the Avery who finally belonged to her own life. "Yes," I said. And I meant it. "I'm finally okay. I am way. I have donas." That night, long after my family left Cipher Guard Tower and the lobby lights dimmed into a soft silver glow, I sat alone in my office with the city rising around me like a constellation I had finally earned the right to claim. Denver stretched wide and luminous beyond the glass walls. Cars moved like slow-burning embers below. For the first time, the world felt vast but not overwhelming, like I wasn't being swallowed by it, but stepping into it. On my desk sat my laptop, still open from earlier. The cursor blinked patiently at me, waiting. I had been rehearsing this moment in my mind for years, without knowing it. Every dismissal, every silenced dream, every expectation pressed into my skin until I could barely breathe. All of it led here. I opened a new email. My fingers hovered above the keyboard, then moved slow, steady, deliberate. To Frank Lane, Madison Lane. Subject. I didn't need a subject line to soften the message. I didn't need paragraphs of explanation or detail. I didn't need to rehash the pain or justify my choices. I simply wrote what felt truthful. I wish you peace. But from today on, I am living a life that belongs entirely to me. No blame. No anger. No revenge. Just a clean, irreversible boundary. I hovered a moment, breath shallow, then clicked send. The email left my outbox like an arrow. A clean shot, a final line severed. And in the silence that followed, I felt a shift, deep, internal, seismic. The kind of shift that rewires something fundamental. I wasn't waiting for their response. I wasn't afraid of it either. For the first time in 27 years, my worth didn't hinge on what happened next. I closed the laptop. Not dramatically, just quietly, like closing a chapter. Then I walked away. Not from my family, not exactly. But from the version of myself they raised me to be. Small, apologetic, compressed into a shape that fit their limitations. That version was gone. A month later, I moved into my new penthouse apartment 42 stories above the heart of Denver, with floor-to-ceiling windows and a balcony big enough to see the mountains carve their dark silhouettes against the sky. The place was modern, minimal, elegant. Sunlight poured across the hardwood floors every morning like a blessing. It wasn't the luxury that mattered. It was the autonomy. The space didn't echo with raised voices or weaponized silence. No one belittled me for dreaming. No one told me I owed them my success. For the first time, my home was mine, uncontested, untarnished. And with that physical freedom came another kind of courage. I started therapy 2 weeks after moving in. Not because I was broken, but because I was finally safe enough to unpack what had been breaking me for years. Dr. Moreno was patient, direct, and unafraid to sit in silence until I found the right words. Together, we worked through the guilt I carried around my mother, the anger I buried toward my father, the complicated grief that came with outgrowing a family that never grew with me. Some sessions left me raw. Others left me lighter. But every single one left me stronger. You learn to survive in a house that didn't see you, she told me once. Now you're learning to live in one that does. Was, and she was right. Healing didn't feel like triumph. It felt like reclaiming oxygen. Cipherguard grew fast in those weeks, faster than industry analysts expected even after the reveal. Government contracts, partnerships, international inquiries, everything accelerated. Reporters requested interviews. Engineering schools asked me to speak. Watching the world embrace our work felt surreal, humbling, affirming in a way I couldn't have imagined back on that graduation lawn when my father placed a one-way ticket in my hands. But with success came an ache. I didn't expect the memory of the girl I used to be. The one who walked into computer labs full of men who doubted her. The one who sat in classes where she was the only woman at the table. The one who wrote code at 3 a.m. because she had no one to tell her she belonged in the daylight. I couldn't go back and save her. But I could save someone else. So I started drafting a proposal. A scholarship fund. Full tuition. Living expenses. Mentorship. For young women entering cybersecurity, the ones with fire in their minds and no one in their corner. I named it the Lane Fellowship, not for the family I came from, but for the road I chose to walk alone. Elias read the draft and looked at me with quiet admiration. "This is going to change lives," he said. I shrugged, though my throat tightened. I want girls like me to know they don't have to earn permission to be brilliant. He nodded. "You're building a legacy, Avery, not a reaction." I didn't answer right away, but inside, something clicked into place. This work, this mission, this way of living, it wasn't about revenge. It never had been. It was about building the world I needed when I was younger. And, finally, having the freedom to choose myself without apology. One evening, after therapy, after finalizing the initial funding for the scholarship, after reviewing proposals for Cipherguard's next phase, I stood on my balcony, a glass of water in hand, watching the city pulse beneath the purple twilight. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about Seattle. I wasn't thinking about my father's anger or Madison's regret. I wasn't thinking about what I should say, or shouldn't say, or needed to prove. I was thinking about tomorrow. My life, my real life, was unfolding, moment by moment, choice by choice. And as the wind brushed my hair and the last light faded behind the mountains, I realized something simple and profound. Cutting ties hadn't made me lonelier. It had made me whole. 1 year later, my life no longer resembled the one I had been pushed out of. Denver's skyline was still the same bright, sharp, rising in all directions, but the girl who'd arrived here with a worn backpack and a bruised heart no longer existed. She had grown into someone steadier, someone clearer, someone who understood her own value in a way no applause or headline could define. Cipherguard had exploded in a way even we hadn't anticipated. Government partnerships, corporate integrations, international contracts. Our technology became the backbone of entire digital infrastructures. My shares climbed with each quarter, and sometime that spring, a financial advisor casually mentioned that my stake was now worth nearly $60 million. $60 million. I had stared at the report in quiet disbelief, not because the number felt too big, but because I remembered the version of myself who once stood on a graduation lawn being handed a one-way bus ticket by the man who insisted I was incapable of being more than a burden. He would never recognize the woman I had become. And the beautiful part was I no longer needed him to. Throughout the year, Elias remained by my side, not hovering, not pushing, just existing in that steadfast, grounding way he always had. We spent late nights planning new system updates, arguing over interface designs, laughing over terrible takeout, drifting into conversations about life and everything beyond it. He had become something more than just a co-founder, more than the friend who met me at a bus station with a worried look and steady hands. Whether it was something romantic or something deeper than romance, I didn't feel the need to label it. He had become my chosen family. The kind you don't inherit but build from trust and loyalty and quiet, mutual understanding. And in choosing that, I felt safer than I ever had in a bloodline. 6 months after moving into my penthouse, I bought the cabin. A small, cedar-sided place tucked against the foothills of Boulder, surrounded by pines and wildflowers and silence in all the right ways. Not the kind of silence that once felt oppressive, full of tension and unspoken resentment, but a silence that held space for breathing, thinking, living. On the porch, I planted rows of lavender, rosemary, and wild daisies. In the mornings, I walked barefoot through the garden, letting the dew soak into my skin. I read books by the fireplace. I meditated in the soft light of dawn. Sometimes I wrote code just for the joy of it, not for deadlines, not for contracts, but for the simple pleasure of creating something elegant. Denver was my life. But the cabin became my sanctuary. A place where the past couldn't reach me, where my mind finally stopped bracing for impact. A place where I belonged to myself. One afternoon in early autumn, when the leaves outside had just begun to rust into shades of gold, a letter arrived at the cabin. The envelope was pale blue, my name written in my mother's delicate handwriting. I held it for a long moment before opening it, pressing the paper against my chest, as if I could absorb her voice through touch alone. Inside was a single sheet. Avery, I hope the mountains are gentle with you. I hope your days are peaceful. I hope your life is kind. You deserve love, softness, and safety, things I couldn't always give you when you lived under our roof. I am learning now that loving someone quietly isn't enough if it leaves them alone in the silence. I want you to know I am proud of you, not for what you've achieved, but for who you have become. With all my heart. Mom. Tears filled my eyes, not painful tears, but the kind that come from healing places, the kind that remind you that some bonds, broken or battered, can still hold threads of truth and affection. I folded the letter gently and placed it inside a wooden box. I kept on my bookshelf the box where I stored things worth remembering, not because they hurt, but because they mattered. At sunset, I stepped out onto the cabin porch, mug of chamomile tea warming my hands. The valley below glowed with colors: amber, rose, indigo, as if the sky was painting its own closure. The wind brushed through my hair, soft and cool, carrying with it the scent of pine and earth. I closed my eyes, breathing it in. I wasn't thinking about Seattle. I wasn't thinking about my father's anger or my sister's regret. I wasn't thinking about the girl who once begged for a place at the table. I was thinking about the journey that began with a bus ticket meant to exile me, and how that single act became the beginning of everything. I whispered into the wind, not as a declaration but as a truth I finally understood deep in my bones. I used to think silence was weakness. But silence is the weapon of people who know their worth. The sun dipped lower, casting a final golden beam across the porch. That year, I murmured, they handed me a one-way ticket. I smiled, a soft, full smile that settled into my chest like peace itself. But I used it to walk toward a new life. A life I built. A life I chose. A life I finally belonged to. And in that moment, standing beneath a Colorado sunset with wind in my hair and freedom in my lungs, I felt whole. Completely, undeniably whole.